On the 13th of January, 2012, at precisely 7:15 p.m., the world's largest Italian cruise ship set off on its anticipated. This magnificent vessel was known as the Costa Concordia. Its sheer size was astounding, surpassing even the legendary Titanic and capable of accommodating an additional 2,000 passengers. On board were 4,252 individuals, ready for an unforgettable voyage. The Costa Concordia was not just large in size but also rich in entertainment. It boasted 4 spacious swimming pools, 5 exquisite restaurants, 13 vibrant bars, a lively casino, a basketball court, a grand fitness center that included a gym, sauna, and Turkish bath, and even an F1 racing simulator for the thrill seekers. The ship's first destination was the city of Savona in Italy, which was expected to be reached within a day. However, just 2.5 hours after departure, an alarming and piercing noise shattered the calm ambience of the ship. Suddenly, all the lights went out, and the ship began to tilt ominously to one side. The time was 9:45 p.m. While some passengers were dining, others were in their rooms either sleeping or preparing for the night. Those who were asleep awoke to confusion and emerged from their cabins to find out what was happening. Meanwhile, the plates on the dining tables began to slide off, indicating the severity of the tilt. The ship's intercom announced that there was an electrical failure, but in reality, the engine had failed, and the captain was withholding this crucial information from the passengers. Soon, the ship began to tilt in the opposite direction, causing further alarm among the passengers. They feared they were experiencing another disaster akin to the Titanic's infamous tragedy, which had occurred exactly 100 years earlier in 1912. Adding to the eerie similarity, the Titanic's theme song, "My Heart Will Go On," was playing in the dining hall as the lights went out and the ship began to tilt. As the ship continued to tilt more severely, water began to fill the lower rooms. Panic spread as passengers realized the ship was in grave danger of sinking. Questions arose as to why the passengers were not being properly informed and why the captain was so reticent. The Costa Concordia was operated by the Italian company Costa Crociere, which initially specialized in cargo ships. In 1948, they expanded into passenger services, eventually becoming one of Europe's largest cruise companies. By 2000, they had been acquired by Carnival Corporation, making Costa Crociere a subsidiary of the world's largest cruise operator. In June 2006, Costa Crociere launched the Costa Concordia, the largest Italian cruise ship at that time, at a construction cost of $570 million, $25 billion. The ship's captain, Francesco Schettino, had been employed with the company since 2002. On the fateful night of January 13th, at 7:18 p.m., the Costa Concordia set sail for Savona. However, within 2 hours, the ship deviated from its designated route. This deviation was intentional. Captain Schettino aimed to perform a sail-by near the island of Giglio, Italy, so the island's residents could admire the illuminated ship. This practice is known as a sail-past or sail-by. Typically, large ships maintain a safe distance of 7 to 8 kilometers from the shore to ensure deep enough waters to navigate safely. However, for this sail-by, the Costa Concordia was a mere 150 meters from the shore, a dangerously close distance with potential underwater hazards such as rocks and reefs. Compounding the risk, it was nighttime, and the ship was traveling at a significant speed. A report from the Italian Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport later confirmed that the ship had been sailing at an unsafe distance from the shore that night. One might wonder why the captain took such a risk. Captain Schettino had previously worked under Senior Captain Mario Colombo, who resided on Giglio Island. Schettino had called Colombo to inform him of the sail-by and the plan to sound the ship's siren as a tribute. However, Colombo informed him that he was not on the island that night but in another city. This call, made at 9:40 p.m., was disconnected abruptly. Shortly afterward, the fateful collision occurred. The ship struck rocks underwater, tearing a massive 70-meter gash in the hull. The impact occurred just 100 meters from the island, bringing the ship dangerously close to land in the dead of night. Water began flooding into the ship rapidly. Andrea Corallo, a 26-year-old third officer, was asleep in his cabin when the collision happened. He awoke to find water already filling the hallway outside his cabin. He rushed to the engine room, only to find the door blocked and the engines completely submerged. At 9:52 p.m., the chief engineer and other officers attempted to start the emergency diesel generator but failed. The chief engineer then informed Captain Schettino of the dire situation, but the captain continued to downplay the severity, assuring passengers it was merely a blackout. The ship continued moving away from the island until around 10 p.m., when Captain Schettino decided to turn the ship back towards the island, reasoning that it would be safer to sink near land rather than in the open sea. This decision caused the ship to tilt even more severely to the opposite side. The ship's crisis coordinator, Roberto Ferrarini, called Captain Schettino twice, at 10:05 p.m. and 10:07 p.m. It was only during the second call that Schettino admitted there were serious problems. Had he done so earlier, the situation might have been managed more effectively. As the ship continued to tilt, Schettino instructed the radio operator at 10:22 p.m. to inform the Coast Guard of the collision and request tugboats, while still downplaying the extent of the emergency. At 10:33 p.m., the general emergency alarm was finally raised, instructing passengers to gather in the emergency assembly areas. By 10:48 p.m., the ship had tilted to a dangerous 30. Despite the escalating crisis, it wasn't until 10:54 p.m. that Schettino ordered the abandonment of the ship. With over 4,200 people on board and the ship tilting precariously, chaos erupted. Some crew members, frustrated with Schettino's inaction, had already begun evacuating passengers. A steward had advised passengers to take their coats and life jackets before the captain's official announcement. In the ensuing chaos, some passengers, confident in their swimming abilities, jumped into the water and swam to the nearby island. Meanwhile, the ship continued to tilt further, making it increasingly difficult for passengers to find their way out, especially those on the higher decks. Among the crew were heroes like Karnatha Ramshana, the only female member of the 11-member security staff, who personally helped a blind woman onto a lifeboat. Other crew members carried wheelchair-bound passengers on their shoulders to safety. Tragically, Indian waiter Russell Rebello helped passengers until the very end but was among those who could not save themselves. In stark contrast to these acts of bravery, Captain Schettino abandoned ship at 11:19 p.m., one of the first to leave. The deputy mayor of Giglio Island, Mario Pellegrini, showed remarkable courage by joining the rescue efforts, even jumping into the sea to help the trapped passengers. By 11:38 p.m., around 400 people remained trapped on the ship. The Italian Coast Guard and other rescue services arrived, saving hundreds more. At 12:42 a.m., Coast Guard Commander Captain Gregorio De Falco made a furious call to Captain Schettino, ordering him to return to the ship and manage the rescue, but Schettino refused, earning him the nickname Captain Coward. By morning, the scale of the disaster became evident. The ship had suffered a massive tear, and despite the rescue efforts, 32 people lost their lives. The residents of Giglio Island provided shelter and aid to the survivors, opening their homes and community spaces to those in need. The rescue operation continued for weeks, involving the Italian Navy, Coast Guard, Fire and Rescue Service, and numerous divers. The ship was declared a constructive total loss, and plans were made to remove the fuel and salvage the wreckage. The fuel extraction process began on February 12, 2012, and lasted over a month. The next challenge was to upright the ship and tow it to port, a complex engineering feat completed in July 2014 at a cost of $1.2 billion. The Costa Concordia disaster also led to numerous legal battles. The company compensated each surviving passenger with a ticket refund and an additional €11,000, approximately $1 million. The families of the deceased received undisclosed settlements. The total cost of the disaster for Costa Concordia was around $2 billion. Captain Schettino was charged with manslaughter and sentenced to 16 years in prison in 2017. His former boss, Mario Palombo, described him as a habitual liar. On the night of the disaster, another ship's captain, Roberto Buzzio, was on board the Concordia. Unlike Schettino, Buzzio helped evacuate passengers until the end and later remarked that it was simply his duty as a captain and human being. 5 other officers were also arrested and sentenced to 2 years in prison each. Today, Captain Schettino is serving his sentence, a stark reminder of the consequences of poor leadership and the importance of integrity and courage in times of crisis. This tragic event teaches us the crucial lesson of never entrusting leadership to someone who cannot admit their mistakes. Leaders who lie and cover up their errors can endanger many lives. If you found this story impactful, you might also be interested in learning about another remarkable incident. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories and lessons from history. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. We love hearing from you, so leave a comment below with your thoughts on this story or any other topics you'd like us to cover.